Hi, nice to meet you again. So this video is about chapter 8. The Queen's Croquet Ground. A large rose tree stood near the entrance of the garden. The roses growing on it were white, but there were three gardeners at it, usually painting them red. Alice thought this is this a very curious thing, and she went nearer to watch them, and just as she came up to look to them, she heard one of them say, "Look out now, Five! Don't go splashing paint over me like that." "I couldn't have it," said the Five in a sulky tone. Seven jumped on my elbow, on which Seven looked up and said, "That's right, Five. Always lay the blame on others." "You'd better not talk," said Five. "I heard the Queen say only yesterday you deserve to be beheaded." "What for?" said the one who had spoken first. "That's none of your business." "Too," said Seven. "Yes, it is his business," said Five, "and it will tell him it was for bringing the cooked tulip roots instead of onions." Down his burst and had just begun, well of all the unjust things, when his eye changed, changed to fall upon Alice as she stood watching them, and he checked himself. Suddenly, the others looked around also, and all of them bowed low. "Would you tell me, please," said Alice, a little timidly, "why you are painting those roses?" Five and Seven said nothing, but looked at Two. Two began in a low voice. "Why, the fact is, you see, miss, this here ought to have been a red rose tree, and we put a white one is in by mistake. And if the Queen was to find it out, we should all have our heads cut off. You know, you see, so you see, miss, we are doing our best before she comes to." At this moment, Five, who had been patiently looking across the garden, called out, the Queen!" And the three gardeners instantly threw themselves flat upon their faces. There was a sound of many footsteps, and Alice looked around, eager to see the Queen. First came 10 soldiers carrying clubs. Those were all separate, like the three gardeners, oblong and flat, with their hands and feet at the corners. Next, the 10 courtiers. Those were orn- ornamented all over with diamonds on pocket two and two. And the soldiers did. After this came the royal children. There were 10 of them, and the little dears came jumping merrily along hand in couples. They were all ornamented with hearts. Next came the guests, almost mostly kings and queens, and among them Alice recognized the white rabbit. It was talking in a hurried, nervous manner, smiling at everything that was said, and went by without noticing her. Then followed the knave of hearts, carrying the king's crown and a magnificent cushion. And last of all this grand procession came the king and queen of hearts. Alice was rather doubtful whether she ought not to lie down on her face like the three gardeners, but she could not remember ever having heard of such a role at processions. And besides, what would be the use of procession? She thought. If people had all to lie down on their faces so that they couldn't see it. So she stood where she was and waited. When the procession came up to Alice, they all stopped and looked at her, and the queen said severally, "Who is this?" She said it to the nymph of hearts, who only bowed and smiled and replied, "Idiot," said the queen, tossing her head impatiently. And turning to Alice, she went on, "What's your name, child?" "My name is Alice." "So please your majesty," said Alice very politely, but she added to herself, Why they are only a pack of cards after all. I need not be afraid of them. And who are those? Said the queen, pointing to the three gardeners who were lying round the rose tree. For you see, as they were lying on their faces and then the parent and their backs towards the same as the rest of the pack, she could not tell whether they were gardeners or soldiers or courtiers or the three of her own children. Also, I know, said Alice, surprised at her own courage. It is no business of mine. The queen turned crimson with fury, and after glaring at her for a moment like a wild beast, began screaming. Off with her head! Off! Nonsense, said Alice, very loudly and decidedly, and the king was silent. The king laid his hand upon her arm and timidly said, Consider, my dear, she is only a child. The queen turned angrily away from him and said to Nymph, Turn them over. The nymph did so very carefully with one foot. Get up, said the queen in a shrill loud voice, and the three guardians instantly jumped up and began bowing to the king and the queen and the royal children and everybody else. Leave off that, screamed the queen. You make me giddy. And then, turning to the rose tree, she went on. What have you been doing here, my it pleasure, your majesty? Said two, in a very humble tone, going down and one knee as he spoke. We were trying, I see, said the queen, who had meanwhile been examining the roses off with their hats. And the procession moved on, three of the soldiers remaining behind the execute of the unfortunate gardeners who ran to Alice for protection. You said be here, said Alice, and she put them into a large flower pot that stood near. The three soldiers wandered about for a minute or two looking for them and then quietly marched off after the others. Are their heads off? Shouted the queen. Their heads are gone, if it please your majesty, the soldiers shouted in reply. That's right, shouted the queen. Can you play croquet? The soldiers were silent and looked at Alice as the question was evidently meant for her. Yes, shouted Alice. Come on then, roared the queen, and Alice joined the procession, wondering very much what would happen next. It is a very fine day, said timid voice at her side. She was walking by the white rabbit who was sleeping anxiously into her face. Ready, said Alice, where's the dashes? Hush, hush, said the rabbit in a low, hurried tone. He looked anxiously over his shoulder as he spoke and then raised himself even tiptoe, put his mouth close to her ear and whispered, She is under sentence of execution. What for? Said Alice. Did you say? What a pity. The rabbit asked. No, I didn't, said Alice. I don't think it is at all a pity, I said, what for? She boxed the queen's ears. The rabbit began. Alice gave a little scream of laughter. Oh, hush, the rabbit whispered, offering in a tone. The queen will hear you. You see, she came rather late. The queen said, Get to your places. So that the queen in a voice of thunder, and people began running about in all directions, drumming up against each other. However, they got settled down in a minute or two, and the game began. Alice told she had never seen such a curious croquet grown in her life. It was all ridges and furrows. The croquet ball were leaf hedgehogs and furrows. The mallets left flamingos, and the soldiers had to double themselves up and to stand up their heads and feet to make the arch. The chief difficulty Alice found at first was in managing her flamingo. She succeeded in getting its body tucked away comfortably enough under her arm and with its legs hanging down, but generally just as she had got its neck nicely straightened out and was going to give the head gehawk a blow with its head. It would twist itself round and look up into her face with such a puzzled expression that she could not help bursting logging, and when she had got his head down and was going to begin again, it was very provoking to find that the hedgehog had unrolled itself and was in the act of crawling away. Beside all this, there was generally a right of or hero in the way wherever she wanted to send the hedgehog to. And as the double of soldiers were always getting up and walking off to other parts of the ground, Ali soon came to the conclusion that it was very difficult game indeed. The players all played at once without waiting for turns, quarreling all the while and fighting for the hedgehogs. And in a very short time, the queen was in a various position and went stamping about and shouting, "Off with his head!" or "Off with her head!" about once in a minute. Alice began to feel very uneasy. To be sure, she had not yet had any dispute with the queen, but she knew that it might happen any minute. And then, thought she, what would become of me? They are dreadfully fond of beheading people here. The great wonder is that there is anyone left alive. She was looking about for some way of escape and wondering whether she could get away without being seen when she noticed a curious appearance in the air. It puzzled her very much at first, but after watching it a minute or two, she made it out to be a grin, and she said to herself, it's the Cheshire cat. No, I shall have somebody to talk to." "How are you getting on?" said the cat, as soon as there was more enough for it to speak with. Alice waited till the eyes appeared and then nodded. "It is no use speaking to it," she thought, "till its ear have come, or at least one of them." In another minute, the whole had appeared, and then Alice put down her flamingo and began an account of the game, feeling very glad she had someone to listen to her. The cat seemed to think that there was enough of it now in sight and no more if it appeared. "I don't think they play at all really," Alice began in rather a complaining tone, "and they quarrel so dreadfully one cannot hear oneself speak, and they don't seem to have any roles in particular. At least if there are nobody attends to them, and you have no idea how confusing it is, all the things being alive. For instance, there is the arch I have got to go through next, walking about the other end of the ground, and I should have croqueted the queen had home just now, only it ran away when it saw mine coming." "How do you like the queen?" said the cat in a low voice. "Not at all," said Alice. "She is so extremely just." Then she noticed that the queen was close behind her, listening. So she went on, "Likely to win. It is hardly worthwhile finishing the game." The queen smiled and paced on. "Who are you talking to?" said the king, coming up to Alice and looking at the cat's head with a great curiosity. "It is a friend of mine, a Cheshire cat," said Alice. "Allow me to introduce it." "I don't like the look of it at all," said the king. "However, it may kiss my hand if it likes." "I'd rather not," the cat remarked. "Don't be impertinent," said the king, "and don't look at me like that." He got behind Alice as he spoke. "A cat may look at a king," said Alice. "I have read that in some book, but I don't remember where." "Well, it must be removed," said the king very decidedly, and he called the queen, who was passing at the moment. "My dear, I wish you could have this cat removed." The queen had only one way of settling all difficulties, great or small. "Off with his head," said she said without even looking round. "I will fetch the executioner myself," said the king eagerly, and he hurried off. Alice thought she might as well go back and see how the game was going on as she heard the queen's voice in the distance screaming with passion. She had already heard her sentence three of the players to be consecuted for having missed their turns, and she did not like the look of things at all. As she game was in such confusion that she never knew whether it was her turn or not. So she went off in search of Hedgehog. The head the hedgehog was engaged in a fight with another hedgehog, which seemed to Alice an excellent opportunity for croqueting one of them with the other. The only difficulty was that the hair flamingo was gonna cross the other side of the garden, where Alice could see it trying in a helpless sort of way to fly up into a tree. By the time by the time she had caught the flamingo and brought it back, the flight was over and both the hedgehogs were out of sight. But it doesn't matter as much, thought Alice, as all the arches are gone from this side of ground. So she tucked it away under her arm that I might not escape again, and went back to have a little more conversation with her friend. When she got back to the Cheshire Cat, she was surprised to find quite a large crowd collected around it. There was a dispute going on between the executioner, the king, and the queen, who were all talking at once, while all the rest were quite silent and looked very uncomfortable. The moment Alice appeared, she was appealed to by all three, the settle and questioning, and they repeated their arguments to her, though as they all spoke at once, she found it very hard to make out exactly what they said. The executioner's argument was that you couldn't cut off head unless there was somebody to cut it off for. That he had never had to do such a thing before, and he wasn't going to begin at his time of life. The king's argument was that anything that had a head could be hidden, and that you weren't to talk nonsense. The Queen's argument was that if something wasn't done about it in less than no time, she'd have everybody executed around. It was this last remark that had made the whole party look so grave and anxious. Alice could think of nothing else to say, but it belongs to the Duchess. You better ask her about it. She is in prison, the queen said to the executioner. Fetch her here. And the executioner went off like an arrow. The cat's head began fading away the moment he was gone, and by the time he had come back with the Duchess, it had entirely disappeared. So the king and the executioner ran wildly up and down looking for it, while the rest of the party went back to the game. So that's all for the chapter 8. Next video will be chapter 9. So thank you for watching this video. See you in the next part.